Hello there and good evening, viewers. Welcome to All 24 Nightly News, broadcasting live from Algiers. I'm your host, Greenford Zachary, and up next are the top stories. South Africa reiterates unwavering support for Sahrawi independence at crucial BRICS summit, while Moroccan unions sound alarm on deepening social crisis and government inaction. Algeria renews its keenness to resolve crisis according to peaceful approaches away from external interference, while ECOWAS denounces Niamey Military Council's transitional plan amid Bamako's caution of bloc's disintegration over potential military action in Niger. Also coming up in our news, intensified siege on Khalil by Zionist forces sparks condemnation. Arab League and OIC urge swift global action against ongoing Zionist violations and accusations of collective punishment by Shia. Also ahead, escalating drone clashes between Russia and Ukraine amid accusations. Moscow blames West for backing Kiev with F-16 jets, while Zelensky asserts confidence in victory. Hello again and thank you for joining us. First off in our news, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has reconfirmed his nation's unwavering commitment to the Sahrawi people's pursuit of freedom and independence. Speaking ahead of the upcoming BRICS summit in Johannesburg, President Ramaphosa emphasized his country's enduring responsibility to stand by those facing colonialism and racial discrimination. He asserted South Africa's ongoing support for the Sahrawi and Palestinian struggles, echoing the conviction that their fight for liberation deserves international solidarity.
Our non-aligned position exists alongside our active support for the struggles of the oppressed and marginalized people in different parts of the world. We have always believed that the freedom that we won and the international solidarity from which we benefited immensely imposes a duty on us to support the struggles of those who continue to experience colonialism and racial oppression. That is why we will continue to support the struggles of the people of Palestine and Western Sahara. We are fully committed to the articles of the United Nations Charter, including the principle that all members shall settle their international disputes by peaceful means.
And in other news, the Democratic Confederation of Labor in Morocco has warned the government about the deepening social crisis, placing blame on the government for ongoing tensions and disruptions sparked by protests. In a Monday statement, the Confederation urged government action to stop the decline in purchasing power. They called for immediate measures to counter the successive hikes in fuel and essential commodity prices. The statement stressed the need for effective steps to prevent further erosion of purchasing power. Furthermore, the syndicate expressed surprise at the government's persistence in avoiding social responsibilities and pursuing policies that worsen the situation. Ibrahim Boughali, Speaker of Algeria's lower house of parliament, reiterated that country's dedication to peaceful conflict resolution, opposing violence and external meddling. Mr. Boughali conveyed this stance while conversing with Mohammed Bakr Kalibaf, leader of Iran's Shura Council in Tehran. They discussed current matters and cooperation between their nations. A statement from Algeria's National People's Assembly quoted Mr. Boughali, affirming Algeria's unwavering commitment to advancing just causes and securing their success. This commitment extends to the Palestinian and Sahrawi concerns. And in other news related to Algeria, Air Algérie has introduced the inaugural direct air route connecting Algiers and Johannesburg, South Africa. This new route launch aligns with the Algerian public airline strategy to strengthen its footprint in Africa. Notably, Algeria has also revealed plans to soon announce new routes to Douala in Cameroon, Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, and Abuja in Nigeria. The report by Islam Said.
Air Algeria has officially launched a new direct route connecting Algiers to the vibrant South African city of Johannesburg. This promising link promises to bring the two nations even closer together, underscoring their deep-rooted historical ties.
The relationship that was cast in stone in 1962, when my grandfather visited Algeria to receive his military training. President Mandela has always held to high regard the Algerian leadership, the likes of Ben Bella, Boudiaf, Bitat, and Boumediene.
Commencing operations on September 21st, the non-stop flights will operate twice a week, departing from Algeria on Sundays and Thursdays, and returning from Johannesburg on Mondays and Thursdays. This strategic move holds immense significance, aligning with Algeria's government roadmap to fortify its national aviation fleet and expand its global network. Notably, this also seeks to elevate Algiers airport's status as a pivotal transit hub for air travel.
So the problem we're solving, we're saying here in the continent, we'll connect among ourselves. And you'll realize this route that is going to grow because there's a huge gap in the continent in terms of connectivity.
The backdrop of the South Africa-Algeria relationship sets the stage for promising opportunities that lie ahead. This occasion serves as a getaway for South Africans to explore Algeria's enchanting tourist destinations and immerse themselves in its rich culture.
Definitely a milestone that has been achieved. We've got a bilateral with Algeria. That bilateral has got great opportunities that we still need to explore, and we are going to explore them.
In my remarks, I spoke about the beautiful coast of Algeria, where South Africans can be able to go there for tourism and witness areas like Tipazar and Contestine, and also enjoy the culture of the Algerian people.
Spanning an impressive 7,433 kilometers, the Algiers-Johannesburg route marks Air Algeria's longest journey within Africa. Not only does this route facilitate easy access between the two cities, but it also offers passengers a plethora of onward connections to diverse destinations across Asia, Europe, and North America. As the inaugural flight takes off, it paves the way for a new chapter of South Africa-Algeria relations, unlocking the door to mutual exploration and enrichment.
In Africa still, ECOWAS rejected the three-year transition proposed by Niger's military leaders, while Mali's transitional authorities warned of ECOWAS dissolution if military intervention happens in Niger. For its part, Germany backed EU's calls for sanctions on Niger's military leaders, while Italy flagged increasing Mediterranean immigration. Here's Osama Ayadi with more.
Shortly after Niger, Military Council revealed a plan for transition of power in the country. The Economic Community of African States showed its absolute rejection of the initiative. ECOWAS Commissioner Abdel Fattah Moussa, during an interview, emphasized that the military intervention in Niger is still possible, calling for the return of Bazoum in the shortest terms.
ECOWAS is not accepting any prolonged transition again in the region. They just have to get ready to hand over power in the shortest possible time. Military aspect is very much on.
For their part, transitional authorities in Mali warned of the collapse and disappearance of ECOWAS in case the bloc intervenes militarily in Niger. Malian Prime Minister Maïga accused some countries within the group of pushing for military intervention under humanitarian guise.
If you wage war against Niger, there will be no ECOWAS left. Why should Africans go to war to reinstall a president? The goal of some countries from the outset is to demolish ECOWAS, who divided Africa on a silver platter in Berlin between 1884 and 1885, under the cover of humanitarian actions.
At the economic front, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock confirmed that her country would push for individual sanctions against the coup leaders in Niger. Italy, for its part, renewed its warning against the repercussions of the crisis in Niger on Europe, fearing this would further worsen illegal immigration phenomenon across the Mediterranean.
We condemn. I condemn the coup in the strongest possible terms, and we welcome the decisive and firm response by ECOWAS to the crisis in Niger. Germany and the European Union stand behind ECOWAS' two-track approach of diplomacy and pressure. In order to lay emphasis on ECOWAS efforts, Germany has suspended all payments to the state of Niger, and we now want to push for individual sanctions among EU member states against the coup plotters.
At the local front, droves of pro-coup demonstrators are still flooding Niger's capital, calling on foreign powers to engage in diplomacy with their military leaders at a time when coup leaders' acceptance of the mission of ECOWAS was a signal of willingness to negotiate.
In Libya, Mohamed Takala, the head of the High Council of State, reiterated the Council's primary objectives: reconciliation, national unity, and concluding transitional phases. His remarks were made during a meeting on Sunday with individuals who submitted candidacy papers in the western region, many of whom had been displaced from the east due to security concerns. The Council's official Facebook page posted a statement noting that the meeting centered on critical ongoing political matters in the country. Key topics discussed included the upcoming elections, the circumstances of the displaced population, and addressing their needs. Takala emphasized the state's duty to address this issue and fulfill its responsibilities, as stated in the official statement. Mohamed Al-Manfi, president of the Presidential Council, praised the Supreme Finance Committee for holding meetings across Libyan cities. He shared his appreciation during his leadership of the fourth committee meeting in Misrata on Sunday. The committee's statement reiterated its commitment to maintaining national consensus in regulating public spending transparently and fairly. It also underscored its dedication to preventing Libya's institutions from returning to political and institutional divisions. In Libya still, the United Nations Support Mission in Libya, UNSMIL, has warmly welcomed the news of the Central Bank of Libya's reunification. In a statement, UNSMIL commended the governor, As-Sadiq Al-Kabir, and his deputy, Mary Muftah Rahil, for their dedication to completing the bank's unification process and addressing the repercussions of its divisions. UNSMIL expressed optimism that the reunification of the central bank would invigorate efforts to unify all political, security, and military institutions in Libya. Spain's king initiated a series of consultations to establish the new government and determine the leadership. However, these discussions are facing significant partisan divisions that pose a risk to their success. 7 separatist groups are boycotting the negotiations, and the Popular Party is accusing Sanchez and his associates of jeopardizing Spain's future.
We acted transparently from the beginning with those aspiring to head the government. Both of them know what we are asking for. Signing the Canary Agenda is a mandatory condition for those who want to obtain our support last week. We voted for the Popular Party to assume the presidency of Congress. But we are now in a new phase, and our hands are extended to everyone.
To the Middle East now, Zionist forces imposed a tight blockade by closing all entrances to the town of Khalil in the West Bank on Monday. Reports stated that the military entered with reinforcements, conducting raids on homes and businesses, seizing surveillance footage. Journalists were also attacked and multiple residences and shops were searched. Let's get more updates with Salman Asib.
The Zionist occupation forces' escalation against Palestinians continues. This time, the entity closed all entrances leading to the city of Khalil in the West Bank and imposed a tight siege on it. In a speech delivered at the beginning of the weekly meeting of the Council of Ministers, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtia expressed his rejection of these terrorist attacks against the town of Huwara and other villages near Nablus, saying that Zionist collective punishment policy and aggression will only increase the resilience of the Palestinian people.
تتعالى أصوات المستعمرين.
The voices of the settlers and the slogans of extremists call again for the eradication of the city of Hawara. In the last 2 days, the city, the villages south of Nablus, and several other areas have been the targets of terrorist acts by the settler gangs. This collective punishment and repeated attacks will increase the strength and determination of our people.
On the occasion of the 54th anniversary of the burning of the Aqsa Mosque in Al-Quds, the Palestinian Prime Minister considered the fire as a crime that was never extinguished.
تصادف اليوم الذكرى الرابعة والخمسين.
Today marks the 54th anniversary of the attempt to burn Al-Aqsa Mosque in 1967. That fire was never extinguished, but reached many towns and cities, and is fueled by the doctrine of erasure and genocide, which has become an official policy of the Israeli government. And as long as the criminals remain safe from punishment, this crime will continue.
At the international level, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation called on the international community to correct the historical injustice that befell Palestinian people by ending the Zionist colonial occupation.
The Organization of Islamic Cooperation calls on the international community, especially the actors in the international arena, to correct the historical injustice inflicted on the Palestinian people by ending the Zionist colonial occupation and enabling the Palestinians to regain their legitimate rights, including the right to return and the establishment of their independent state on the borders of June 4, 1967, with East Al-Quds as its capital.
All in all, the ongoing violation committed by the Zionist entity were also the focus of the General Secretariat of the League of Arab States, which called on the international community to immediately intervene in order to stop and rejected any attempt to detract Palestinian sovereignty or any unilateral measures that affect the legal status of Al-Quds.
In the Middle East still, Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Nasser Kanani stated that the prisoner exchange and release of frozen Iranian funds in South Korea might occur within 2 months at most. Kanani dismissed any plans for direct talks with the U.S., including during the United Nations General Assembly sessions. 5 U.S. citizens are set to leave Iran in exchange for the release of approximately $6 billion frozen in South Korea due to sanctions. This agreement also includes the liberation of detained Iranians in the United States.
The maximum period of time that was estimated for the exchange of Iranian and American prisoners and the release of Iran's blocked money in South Korea is about 2 months.
To other topical news now, the 15th BRICS summit holds great significance amidst the world's heightened polarization, fueled by the Ukraine conflict and rise in South China Sea tensions. The bloc's aspiration to foster a multipolar landscape underscores this importance. With the BRICS summit set to commence in Johannesburg, South Africa, the city is under stringent security measures. Over 40 countries have affirmed their attendance, and the event is anticipated to attract numerous African leaders and heads of international organizations.
Well, this is definitely the most historic BRICS summit, the 15th BRICS summit. It's also going to be the biggest BRICS summit to date. We've got over 50 heads of state from the global south, in particular in the African continent, confirmed to attend, including the United Nations Secretary General, who's also confirmed to attend.
Well, let's get more updates in this report about the 15th BRICS summit.
As the 5th BRICS summit readies for launch in South Africa, discussions about the organization's nature, objectives, and current challenges resurface in the midst of recent global shifts. Once heralded as an alternative economic bloc championing new rules for cooperation among member nations, BRICS encountered hurdles amidst old well-established economic powers that held sway over the global landscape.
Well, the financial market of BRICS countries are becoming more important, not only for VTB or Russia, it's for the world. BRICS economies represent today 31.5% of the global GDP. This is more than the GDP of G7, which is only 30%. And it means that, of course, there's a growing economic force.
BRICS articulated its core ambitions, fostering sustainable development, safeguarding multilateral trade systems, enhancing the investment climate and combating global poverty. These aspirations hinge on resolute political determination. With the embodiment of such intent, the new development bank was materialized.
The biggest achievement so far has been the institutionalization of the BRICS New Development Bank, which has really been a niche and sought a niche in terms of financing of sustainable infrastructure, green projects in the various countries. But also you look, they have a goal of by 2026 of sort of extending about 30% of the loans that they extend being in local currencies.
The attainment of $100 billion capital target for the bank by 2050 seems within reach, given the enthusiasm of prospective BRICS entrants. Moreover, this aligns with the collective aspiration of group members to establish a multipolar economic framework, which enhances their credibility in the face of the dollar's dominance in worldwide trade dealings. To surmount the challenge, BRICS embraced trading in local currencies as a primary remedy, a step towards the eventual consensus on a fresh unified currency. This strategic response takes into account the global and regional shifts triggered by the Russian-Ukrainian conflict.
Weapon for not only political but military reasons. And it's becoming more and more dangerous for the rest of the world to keep reserves or to make settlement in dollars or even euro. And that's why I explained that the process of de-dollarization is speeding up now. Many countries started to trade in the local currency. For example, Russia and China already in our bilateral trade, the level of yuan and ruble reached 80%.
From its roots as an economic entity, BRICS is now embracing a geopolitical role due to unfolding events. The upcoming Johannesburg summit stands as a pivotal stage where member nation leaders will plot the trajectory for future undertakings.
Ukrainian Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar reported active defense against Russian attacks in the Kharkiv region, while Russia's defense ministry says it countered Ukrainian drone attacks near Moscow through electronic warfare, averting casualties, that is. Here's Sofian Kinturi with more updates.
The Russia-Ukraine conflict is marking the headlines all over again, especially in the escalating tensions in these few days. Ukraine's Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said on Monday that the situation in the eastern region of Kharkiv is difficult, but Ukrainian forces repelled many Russian attacks, and that Russia is abandoning its plans to move forward and calls for additional forces.
The armed forces of Ukraine continue to advance on the southern flank around Bakhmut over the past week and liberated 3 square kilometers, bringing the total area to 43 square kilometers.
On the other hand, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that it thwarted 2 Ukrainian drones' attack on Monday in Moscow, which resulted in no casualties. The ministry added that the air defenses in the Moscow region had detected other drone, which was paralyzed by electronic warfare and crashed near a village in the southwest of the capital. In another event, Russia's ambassador to Denmark, Vladimir Barbin, said in a statement that he considered the Western move an attempt to push Kiev towards continuing the military option and abandoning peace plans. This comes after Denmark and the Netherlands' decision to supply Kiev with the first F-16 fighter jets.
Denmark's decision now to donate 19 F-16s to Ukraine leads to an escalation of the conflict. By covering up behind the assumption that Ukraine should determine the terms of peace, Denmark seeks, in deed and word, to leave no other option to Ukraine but to continue the military confrontation with Russia.
For his part, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky encouraged his soldiers on the ground and expressed his confidence in Russia losing the war in his country during his speech in Copenhagen.
Dear friends, today we are confident that Russia will lose this war.
Due to different conditions and the crisis, the conflict is moving away from the negotiating table. The following months will surely tell more stories about the Russia-Ukraine file, with both sides attempting to achieve additional victories on the ground.
Beijing denounced the Camp David tripartite summit's joint declaration on Monday, labeling it a blatant intrusion into China's internal matters. Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin accused the leaders of the United States, South Korea, and Japan of exploiting Taiwan and maritime issues to criticize Beijing.
The leaders of the United States, Japan and South Korea met at Camp David and launched baseless attacks against China on issues involving Taiwan, maritime affairs, and more. They currently interfered with China's internal affairs and deliberately tried to strain China's relationships with neighboring countries, gravely violating the fundamental principles of international relations. China expressed strong discontent and firm opposition to this, and has already made serious representations to the relevant parties.
Well, we reached the end of our program. For more news, follow our media or social media channels. Take care.